Hello everyone and welcome to the 10th episode of What If Civilization Started Over. Today will mark a great event. Not like a happy, great event, but a really bad event. The Second Great War that will differ the world from how it was looking like right at this point. We will ignore Lavender in this episode, because that's a deviation of our timeline. If you didn't watch that episode, there's a link in the description for the playlist. Today we will continue our events from the Red and the Green War. The Second Great War will start right here, right now. So now the Red King declared war on the Green team, and the Red team was the first to really attack the Green side. They started to invade the places that were really vulnerable. They got towards the Dark Red's border. Dark Red didn't take a part in this war as of now. Red started to get many places back what they had before. They were fighting against the Green. The Green was so large, so like they were expanding all the way from Morocco towards Ethiopia, where the actual civilization of our world started. But Green lost a lot of land here. Although Red lost a lot of land before, they got a great army. They were fighting hard towards the Green. They were done. After a great fight already, Green lost a great portion of their land already. These two pockets were still pretty hard to get. But finally the Green army arrived and they fought back against the Red team. But they were outnumbered. Green had not many people to fight with. Although Green looks really big, their people are just too far away already. Like these people here in this part of this settlement, this civilization, it will take a really long time before people for the army will arrive at the capital, and then they still have to go towards the front. That will take a great while. But Green was going to fight, but Red was going to fight as well. It was just a back and forth, and slowly but surely Green was losing even more land. After a while, this pocket was starting to be really small, and this part was completely gone. No one saw it coming. Red was still pretty strong, although they lost a great amount of land and a great amount of people as well. Green lost their land completely in the west, and Red started to fight. Green lost their whole army already. Now they got into Green's territory again. And then something happened that turned this war upside down, 360 around. No one really saw this coming, other than Dark Red themselves. Because Dark Red was starting to invade the Green as well. And because Green was peaceful towards Blue, so also Purple, also towards Cyan, Green, Pink, Magenta, Orange. These two were still too new to actually be in this war, but eventually they will be. And because Green was getting attacked, remember there are no alliances yet. The countries are sort of on their own, but they will help each other if needed. Because Dark Red invaded the Green team, the first to help the Green team that got in touch with the Green team was not the Blue team, the Magenta team, because the Magenta team was just closer. They had to sail pretty close towards and along their land, their Dark Red's land, but they got past it and got to the Magenta team. The Magenta team was actually done by just sitting around. The Dark Red took land from them. So what they did, they were going to invade this part, what they lost towards the Dark Red. They were quickly. Magenta was pretty quickly at fighting back. And they got their whole island back right here. They got their whole settlement back. They got on land right here. They got almost 3/4 of this settlement as well. And now Dark Red had to fight on 3 sides. But they still wanted to get the Green team's capital before the Red team could take it. Red was going pretty quickly towards their second settlement already. They took it. They were going further and further. But eventually, the Dark Reds invaded the army of the Reds and got this settlement for their own. They invaded the part of the original Red territory. They were pretty close already towards this settlement that was already freed by the Reds. Luckily they could fight back and they got a little bit land back, and they had to hold the Dark Reds here before they could invade. Luckily the Reds were pretty strong and they stopped the Dark Reds and towards the capital of Green. And maybe you ask, is gold funding the Dark Red team? At this point they weren't really. The only ones that were really funding this war was Brown, because Brown of course hates red, and just they didn't care about green. They never really met green before, so they were like, forget it. If you want to take green, do whatever you want. So the dark reds were able to get this settlement, the third settlement that was ever built on Earth, with maybe excluding the gold and the grays. Dark red was fighting in the red's territory and green territory at the same time. Finally some more men arrived for the green, and they fought back as well. And they fought a little more in the dark reds area, because the dark reds were also in their area. They got this land back, and it was just a back and forth war. I just realized dark red doesn't have a capital. Wait, that's a really big mistake. Let's correct that. Maybe you were already screaming that, but all these episodes since Dark Red appeared were pre-recorded right after the others, so excuse me for that. But the capital is right there on this island, one of the first settlements that was in this area. But the Dark Red's king, that's what I wanted to say, that's why I eventually noticed we don't have a Dark Red capital. The Dark Red was threatening another country for their own sake. They wanted to invade the Reds from another side. On which side is still possible to invade them? Well, via Yellow. The Yellow King was threatened, and the Dark Red King said, if you don't let me invade Red through your country, then you will be a victim of this war as well. Yellow said, okay, go on. I don't want a part of this war or anything like this, so go on. No armies were used of the Yellow team, just the Dark Red's army traveled through the Yellow team and got on land very close towards this Red's capital. They were already pretty close and almost they got the capital, but luckily the Reds could fight back. The war was not far from over yet. The war is still pretty dense in area, it's still here in Europe and in Africa. But I said eventually in the last episode that even Purple will get involved. Slowly but surely we will get there. Brown at this point was still funding the war, and Magenta eventually knew this, and they had to do something about it that Brown could not handle to fund more and more people towards the Dark Reds, so they had to distract the Brown people by invading them as well. So what Magenta did, together with Orange, they said let's invade Brown together, so they are distracted, so that our fellow friend Green can hold on for a moment. So firstly, Magenta got inland of the Brown team and invaded them and got almost a settlement of theirs. But Orange was the first to get a settlement of the Browns and captured it and said leave Dark Red alone, let them finishing their war, and then we will let your settlement loose. But Brown was not so simple about that. They were not having this at all. So what they did, they were going to invade Orange. They got some land back. They also were going to invade Magenta and Orange. And yes, now Brown was busy with Orange and Magenta. So eventually Green noticed after a while that they could overrun the Dark Reds and they got their settlement back. So now Orange and Magenta are both involved in this war. Red was able to fight all these green men and they were able to get to the, well, 5th or 6th settlement now. And they captured it as well. They took it. They even got some land from the Dark Reds. Sadly, the green team couldn't handle any more attacks from the Dark Reds. And they lost this front against them. And sadly, the battle of their capital was lost. And they lost their capital. Green was now without a capital. But the war was not over yet. Because Red knew they were coming for this capital as well. So they had to stop them and distract them. So they got some land out of this as well. They got through this and got a settlement from them. They got another settlement, eventually. Red fought back, of course. They couldn't leave it all behind. They got one settlement back, but not another one. And the battle of the Red capital was still being held. It was a really, really awesome battle in terms of fighting or in terms of tactics. It just looks like a line here, but just know, in universe, it's one of the greatest battles mankind ever had. Luckily, the Reds were able to get all these men out of the Dark Reds, because mostly it was the Brown army that was fighting here under the name of Dark Red, and they got their land back. They even got some little bit of land back here near their settlement, and they got the settlement back. But there has to be a turning point in this war to call the Second Great War. because still blue, purple, cyan, green, pink, gold, grey, light blue and yellow are not a part of this war. It's just, and remember all those episodes ago when I said that dark blue was still angry at red for what they did all those years ago and still wanted revenge. Their revenge came. The world's first alliance was created. It was signed, it was prepared, it was done. Dark blue joined an alliance together with dark red and brown to finally end the red team. The green team was already lost. They had no capital in hand, so they couldn't arrange to get also into the cross alliance. It was more called the Southern Pact. The Southern Pact really wanted the Reds to be gone. So Blue was finally funding the war with people and with supplies. And the Magenta King and team didn't saw this coming at all, together with Cyan and Dark Green. They were like, whoa, what did you do, Blue? And Blue had just one answer towards these people when the word finally came out, revenge. Blue was done by sitting around and got some land from the Greens. The Greens were just there to get, so they got land. And they slowly marched towards the front that was all the way over here in the capital. They actually wanted to get the capital for their own. But first they got a settlement from the Greens. And although the Green team was lost, they were alone. No one really had their backs. They sort of trusted the blue people. So they wanted to be, quote unquote, captured by the blue team instead of the dark reds or even the reds. The front here in the west expanded towards the capital. So red and dark red were going to fight for this capital. There were no more people fighting for the green team because they know their capital was not in their hands anymore. People fled from this settlement, also this one, but it was already in the hands of dark red, so they didn't really let the people flee. And eventually this settlement was totally abandoned. Totally abandoned. No one was left. Remember then that people left a settlement here in the green part a long time ago. Still people stayed. Some people stayed. But here, no one was left. So this is now a abandoned major city. The battle for the capital of Green was also a great one, just like the one it was here for the Reds' own capital. But slowly but surely, the blue team was starting to catch up with the war. They got another settlement in their hands. They even headed south. And remember that the blue team was thriving 2 episodes ago when I said that. Well, they were. They were getting on land near every settlement that was there to get. They knew where they were lying, so they just got them all. And remember when they met with the Greens, from here on they also got the land. They started to just get all the land they was able to get. It was going fluent. Dark blue got a load of land out of this. Land was just there to grab. Green was fallen. No more green was there to fight against. This whole part was now captured or taken by the blue team. And just like that, the blue team started to get further inland. They got another settlement. They got this whole area eventually. And slowly but surely the green team was totally gone. Blue was able to get the last still not taken settlement from the Greens. The people were happy that the blue came here. They didn't really knew that the blue were here at all in the war. And they finally met up with their aligned army. The dark reds were now bordering the dark blue. The dark blue were going strong and got this abandoned settlement and were now fighting against the reds. And they got this settlement. They got this major city. Not only a settlement, they got the major city. And they fought even more. But not forgetting the north, of course. When blue joined the war against the red and the green, that's now totally off the map, brown could focus on now orange and magenta that were in the war, and they didn't want to be in the war anymore because they knew they were nothing against these three. And they were actually pretty scared that soon enough gold and grey would join the cross alliance. But soon enough, gold told the orange, we are even not funding this war. We do not care about the reds. We do not care about the greens. We just care about ourselves. And if you invade us, we will invade you. But we will not invade you first. So the orange and the pinks that were bordering these lands were happy about that. But the brown team was invading the orange team pretty quickly. They got even some more land here. Of the orange and the magentas. They were fighting back like it was nothing. They got the settlement from the magentas. Their front was getting pretty large as well. Now their whole border was just a front. Because orange is maybe not that big or that thriving, but they had one of the biggest populations in the world. Let's actually make a ranking of their population. Blue is first. Of course blue has the most population because, well, I said before, they are thriving. Second is magenta. And third is orange. Fourth is brown. And fifth is gold. And I think then we have purple or cyan. Maybe cyan? I think cyan is in the place of gold. And then we have sixth. Sixth is gold. I do not really write that beautiful here, but now you saw it. The rankings. What Edis Pro also does. But back to the war. Brown was able to get a major part of orange and got a settlement again. But after a long lost battle, orange finally was able to get their settlement back and to fight back a little more. They got inland as well. Magenta was also finally able to fight back. And they got a great part of brown as well. They were able to circle in this part of the brown army and they were all killed. And some countries were just seeing and watching and just waiting this war to escalate. Cyan, green and pink both saw this, with purple as well, but purple was still a little bit busy with this unknown civilization here in India. Keep that in mind. We are finally almost catched up with that one as well, with that story. So these three countries, cyan, dark green and pink, were worried because we have a new country, a recently new country that hated green as well, dark cyan. No one heard about it when this war started, but some people speculated that some people from the dark science were fighting in this war. But before blue would escalate this war even more, before blue could do anything out of the ordinary, cyan, dark green and pink knew about this alliance, the Southern Pact. They wanted to be also in an alliance. And they are in the Shield Alliance, it's like an upside down shield. But not only these countries joined this alliance. Surprisingly, Grey joined this alliance as well. Gold was like, Grey, what the fuck did you do? I thought we were one of the same. I thought we were helping each other. Grey joined this upside down shield, let's just call it the shield alliance. They were pretty scared of what was happening with that great power in the south. Yes, this sort of looks like the old empire if you know like Edis Pro, but I have like plans on changing that. Back to the war. Magenta got a new settlement in their hands. Brown was able to get a little bit land out of it, but they were just too busy with another front here with orange. And orange started to separate their fronts and to just fight at more parts. They even crossed the ocean and got on the main territory of brown. Let's also close the alliance map. They got pretty close towards his settlement, but luckily for the brown, they could fight a little bit back, but now they were exhausted. They were fighting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fronts. They were not funding dark red anymore. And then they just said, dark red, you have to help me. Dark red was still too busy with fighting against the reds, of course. Brown also just asked towards blue, can you fund me some people? But blue was like, I am also really fighting here against blue, and to fund you some people, that is a little bit too far away. Like, I'm talking, also, like, just a disclaimer, I'm talking like if they can talk like directly to each other, but that's of course not the case. It will take some weeks, and maybe I'm drawing like this front, and maybe that will take also a week. So like, it's time. Time is like a paradox in this series, but just to have fun, let's forget about that. Magenta got a little bit of land, and they also started to fight here in the dark reds, and they got this island and even got on land on this one, and they were getting near the capital, and this was concerning for the dark reds. If they lost this part of this country, they were lost. So they just opted out of this war here in the south. Blue took it over, and blue fought against the reds. It was a long time no see for each other, that they were head to head to each other. Dark red was finally going to fight against the magentas here. They fought back, they got a little land, but magenta was really strong here because it was near a really thriving settlement. And Magenta sort of was thinking, you have more people than you can offer in this war? And Dark Red sort of realized, why do you have so much people to fight with? Well, it's not really a surprise anymore, I think. Also, Magenta and Orange joined this alliance with the shields, and they were like a shield pact. It was now too strong for the Cross Alliance to hold these powers. But then something happened that not really everyone saw coming. Gold joined the Southern Pact against the Shield Alliance. And now we have a problem. Gold and Grey are not really helping each other anymore. That was concerning, but also we can have a front war right here. Oh, there's a cross. We can have a front war right here. The war can expand to everywhere in Europe now. Everyone is against each other. Everyone has an enemy now. The only countries that do not have an alliance are light blue, yellow, dark cyan, and purple, without really knowing that lavender is alive. You would expect the war to be here at orange, but gold really knew if they would invade orange, that they would be invaded by their own sort of fellow older ally, the Grey. So they were not actually fighting themselves in the war. Grey didn't do that as well. They were just funding the war with people, with supplies, but these two were so far away that was taking a while. But Dark Red landed again near the capital of the Reds, and after a great second fight of the capital, the Reds' capital was taken by the Dark Reds. And suddenly the Blues noticed that, and they could eventually fight more back. People were eventually noticing the lack of people. They eventually noticed that people were not fighting anymore. That was taking weeks, but Blue got another settlement of the so-called green that was always here. And then Red surrendered. Red said, please, I will surrender, but leave me, let me live, let me still be alive. And we will look at the first peace treaty of this war. But notice, this war is not over. We still have fronts here in the north, in the center of Europe. But here in the Reds, it's over. Let's look at the first peace treaty here in Africa. And this is how it was looking like now. Green, totally off the map. It was a country that was already just weak and just innocent. And it was always going to be a country that was just lying there, waiting to be eaten alive almost. Blue expanded their borders pretty far into Africa and made their border right here with Dark Red. Dark Red expanded a lot. And Red was still alive, but it was barely anything. It was just two cities. One major one and one capital, but it was also just a small one. And Dark Red said one thing towards Red. One attack towards me or my allies, and you'll be gone forever. They sort of still wanted the Reds to be alive, just to mock them, that they just cannot expand anymore. They are just surrounded by the Dark Reds, and Red was defeated. They tried to just fight against their enemy, but they couldn't anymore. But the war is not over yet. We still have a war in the north. But this episode is already pretty long. And in the next episode we will see what happens, what the Southern Pact will do against the Shield Alliance. And how Purple will eventually get involved in this war. Because they are still not. They are finally now back home after their last fight against the Lavender people. The two timelines are now together. The Second Great War is still going on. And what will happen against Shield Alliance and the Southern Pact, we will see that pretty soon in the 11th episode of What If Civilization Started Over.